Okay, these are the main sources I go to learn more information, more specific information. So my level I'm at, I'm way beyond Xerxes Society, Pollinator Partnership. Those are starter places, right? I'm going to the next level and the next level. And I want to know about Asclepias tuberosa. That seems like a plant I want to experiment in my landscape. It seems like it might work, okay? So we're going to go learn about aspects of this plant that we need to know, again, about the roots, about its sociability especially. We're going to go learn about those things at Prairie Moon, at the USDA website, at Bonap, at Illinois Wildflowers, at Bplant, and also at something called the Perennial Directory by Noel Kingsbury, who is out of the UK. Actually, I think he's at least half out of the Portugal or Spain right now, right? I think he moved there. But he's British. So, okay. So I'm going to switch back over. Ooh. There it is. All right, so I'm going to Prairie Moon. I always go to Prairie Moon first. You can go to Prairie Nursery. You can go to whatever local regional source you have. Prairie Moon is Minnesota, southeastern Minnesota. I wouldn't necessarily, they're going to hate me for this because we're friends, but I wouldn't necessarily get Prairie Moon plants if I'm living in like, South Carolina or something. You're going to have more regional sources. Hopefully you can get local seed sources, local plant sources that have more, they're, local ecotype, local genotype. So they're a little bit more adapted to your region and your climate. Anyway, Prairie Moon Nursery, awesome for basic information, right? So we go down here to the About tab. I mean, you can go to the range map first, county by county. You don't even need to go to Bonap for this. It's right here on Prairie Moon. Okay, so you can see where it's native. Is your county there? Yes. Okay, awesome. You probably already knew that though. But we go back to the About tab and we can learn stuff about it, right? It's a great milkweed for sunny locations in a dry area. Okay, cool. Mature plants and ideal locations can make as many as 20 stems. Yeah, I would love to see that. I haven't seen that yet. I'm cleaning my client landscapes, but those maybe aren't ideal conditions, right? Let's see, yep, where's the thing I wanted to get to? Well drained, drought tolerant taproot. You don't really probably want to transplant it if you don't have to. Okay, so we're getting some sense about it. Okay. If we go to the USDA website now, there's a map. You can click on it. You've already seen the county by county. What I care most about is up here under butterfly milkweed general information. Awesome. There's a PDF. Again, not every plant species is going to have a PDF. Some do. Luckily, this one does. Crap ton of information here, guys, to help you really understand how this plant is going to perform for you. Obviously, you're probably already consulting a local regional book, right? Native plant 4 book or guide or something like that, whatever you want to call it. Oh, where's the paragraph I want to look at though? Medicinal uses. Yeah, we don't care about that right now. Maybe it was over here. Distribution establishment description. It's easily propagated by both seed and rhizome cuttings. So I'm under the establishment, right? Okay. Both seedlings and cuttings will usually bloom in their second year. Yeah, that's probably true. I'd say maybe 3. Uh, Roots are, yeah, that's seed increases. Butterfly milkweed increases by underground shoots and can be invasive. Okay. I've already pointed this out today in one place. I'll do it again in case you missed it. A native plant cannot be invasive where it's native to, only if it's outside its native range. So we'd have to use the word aggressive, gregarious, something like that. And it is ideal in semi-dry places where it can spread without presenting problems for other ornamental species. Now, if you read between the lines there a little bit, it basically means it doesn't like a lot of competition. It certainly doesn't like a lot of taller things around it, and it probably doesn't like to be crowded by things that are the same size. It's going to do great in a matrix of Butula gracilis. That would be your living green mulch, your ground cover layer, your matrix, Butula gracilis, blue grama, because it's going to be a little bit taller than that. I wouldn't necessarily see it doing as well among little blue stem because that's getting taller and putting out a lot more seeds, so it's going to be a little bit more competitive. I'm trying to remember if there was something else on here. But anyway, if you get lucky and the plant species you're researching has a PDF here at the USDA site, man, you're golden. Okay, But I also want to go to IllinoisWildflowers.info. I don't know if you've heard of this one. It's fantastic. You can also get lists of expected insect species and how they're going to use your plant that you're researching. They might just be using the flowers. They might use it as a host plant, eating the foliage. They could be eating the roots. You don't know. That's why you do the research. But you get a description, and it's incredibly technical. This is, it might feel over your head if you're not here yet. That's totally okay. I'm with you thinking about, what does alternate, leaves mean? What does lanceolate, leaves mean, and all that good stuff. But we scroll down a little bit, so we're getting a really detailed description. We're getting some pictures so we can understand that description a little bit here at IllinoisWildflowers.info. But what we really care about here today is under cultivation. The preference is full sun, mesic to dry conditions, or mesic. I always say mesic. I know it's mesic to dry conditions and an acidic soil that is sandy or rocky. However, this plant will adapt to other kinds of soil, including those that contain loam or clay, if they are well drained. All right, so its preferred habitat is dry, pretty well drained, but it will adapt. So it will adapt means if you put it in clay, it's going to grow a little bit differently. Maybe it takes longer to establish. Maybe it doesn't put out as many flowering stems. That's sort of how we were looking at Conoclinium colestinum a little bit earlier. In its ideal situation, it does X, but in its not ideal situation, it will adapt and still do well, just perform a little bit differently. And that's, you can research more into that in other sources. Although this plant develops somewhat slowly, it is easy to cultivate in open, sunny areas. So that means not a lot of competition, certainly not any shade. Once it becomes established, tolerance to dry, hot weather is excellent. If the taproot of a young plant is planted too close to the soil surface, it may become damaged by frost due to heaving of the soil. Okay, great. That's what we wanted to come and learn from here. There's some faunal associations down here, just basic stuff. There's another area to the website that gives you a lot longer list using the Latin of fauna you can expect to come and visit your plant, maybe, or at least historically speaking, that would come and use this plant. I want to go to another site you maybe haven't heard of. I've already mentioned it today. It's called bplant.org. I think Alex is who runs it. So here we go. Here's a profile for Asclepias tuberosa on bplant.org. Found in dry open habitats, sandy rocky soil. So see, we're starting to collate things here, right? If all these websites are saying likes it dry, likes it hot, like sandy rocky, that's what it prefers, then that's a pretty good baseline to go from, right? Although it's usually found in acidic soils, especially in the eastern part of its range, it has some tolerance of soil alkalinity. So yeah, I can tell you here in eastern Nebraska, clay soil is generally fine, especially if it dries out in summer, especially that. You don't want it to stay moist. Okay, there was one big thing on here I wanted to say. Not that we're going to plant it on railroad right of ways. It wasn't that. Seeds germinate on the soil surface. Seedlings are slow to develop above ground. On favorable sites, the plants may flower in the first year or two. Yeah, that's definitely true. On less favorable sites, it definitely takes longer. Shoot, what was the other thing I wanted to say on here? Well, this one maybe doesn't apply to us, but plants are typically unaffected by low intensity fire during the dormant season. Not like we can burn usually in suburban areas. Some suburbs you can, which is fantastic. You can get a permit for that. I wish we could here. That would really help with a lot of things. Um, it's easy to grow once established. Yeah, you just don't want to move it. I know some places will say you can move it like in the spring, but geez. All right. So there's also wonderful because this is Asclepias tuberosa, and a lot of people misidentify it with the non-native tropical milkweed, Asclepias curt, whatever the Latin is. Alex goes in here and does a wonderful job comparing and contrasting with some description and some images for you. I just wanted to point that out to you. Doesn't happen with every plant. Okay, and then finally, I want to go to Noel Kingsbury's website, the Perennial Plant Directory. There's the URL up there. You can copy and paste when you're watching the recording. So here's the A's, all the different A's. Now, again, this is over in Europe, so we have a mix of North American indigenous plants and those that are not. But here's Asclepias down here, so I'm going to go click on that. I've actually already got the window opened up. So there's the Asclepias tribe, 200 herbaceous perennials. Okay, we need to find tuberosa. Here's incarnata. By the way, incarnata doesn't live very long. It's probably the preferred milkweed host plant, but it just doesn't live that long. A speciosa, no, we don't care about. There's tuberosa. All right, so expected bloom is going to be July, August. Actually, it's more like June here. I guess it depends on where you are in the country, right? So you get a lot of information here. Crown has a deep taproot. That's incredibly important to know. Poor, dry, sandy soil, drought tolerant, etc., etc. Uh, So anyway, these are some of the main websites that I will go to. Like if I need something really quick, especially I know that I can trust these spaces, these places, and get some a little bit deeper view on some of these plants. And I get a lot of information in just under 5 minutes. So those are the core websites. Okay, so I'm going to pull back out again. Oh, so many windows. So, what have we learned researching Asclepias tuberosa today? Even though if I didn't hit all of it, trust me, it's all there in the documents. So, Prairie Moon says there's 4,300 seeds per ounce. That tells me that it's putting out a good deal of seeds. Okay. So, that doesn't mean they're going to germinate easily, but it can tell me a little bit about its behavior in the landscape. C30 germination code means that it requires 30 days of cold, moist weather before the seeds can germinate in spring. So if I don't have those conditions on my site, then it might not be spreading as much, at least not by seed. Deep taproot, late to emerge in spring, can be transplanted during dormancy, but I wouldn't recommend it. And then we learned from USDA or NRCS, grows in small clumps, sand, loam, rocky soil, reproduces by rhizome mostly, a little bit by seed. You can propagate it in several different ways. Over at Bonap, you can find the county native range map. We went over to IllinoisWildflowers.info and we got all those wonderful physical details. We learned it's adaptable to a lot of site conditions, slow to establish, loves heat. And Illinois, it's going to grow in upland areas, well-drained areas. Fire can help reduce competition from other plant species around it. Now, if you can't use fire, you can use a lawnmower or a weed eater or something like that if you find the Asclepias tuberosa starting to struggle and you want to help it along. And then the information we learned from Bplant and then perennial directory, what we learned there, longevity is 10 plus years. This is a long-lived perennial, herbaceous perennial. So this is one of those plants that is going to stick around a long time. It's not going to be like Ratibida pinnata, gray head coneflower. That's probably, in general, only going to be around 5 years or less in general. Not always, but in general. And then we can go to one of my favorite book sources, John Farrar's Nebraska Great Plains Flora book. There's considerable color variation from the expected bright orange to a deep reddish orange and occasionally a rich dark yellow color, probably a reflection of soil pigments. Fascinating, right? Dark red orange flowers reported to be typical in the heart of its range, so eastern Kansas, western Missouri. Flowers becoming less red and more yellow at the margins of its range. Just fascinating to me. Okay,